Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Executive Director of Cox & Kings, Urrshila Kerkar. Welcome.
Thank you.
So it's been quite a year of transformation for tour operators globally, right? TUI undergoing restructuring, Thomas Cook in its own share as well, Coney coming under new ownership. Even Cox & Kings had its share of M&A this year. Could you start off with talking about the group as a whole, some of its assets, and how it's placed in this whole transforming tour operating landscape?
So to put it in context, I don't know how many of you know this, but Cox & Kings is the oldest travel company in the world. So to put it mildly, we've gone through a couple of world wars. We've gone through industrial revolution, and now I gather digitization, and we'll probably be there for virtual reality, IoT, and then I may not be around, but I'm sure C&K will be around. So that takes us really, right up to now. And these last few years, actually, we've transformed because we were owned by banks, and we went from being wage payers for the British rule for all their soldiers down to just being a bank instrument to pay wages. In fact, we had 24/7 operating at that time, whereby people would come off the docks and be paid their wages at any time. Today, we continue our 24/7 service. To bring it into this context, around 1986, C&K had gone more into a cargo kind of a company. And at that point, Grindlays required a trading operation. And that's how C&K got revived again and went into tours for the first time. Today, we've sort of transformed. We've moved into the educational business, and that's where we see a large part of our future. In India, we're very lucky. Like China, we have a growing middle income segment. So you will have a lot of holidays. So that will continue. And we do also look at the future for our hotel hybrid Meininger group, which was a hostel come hotel concept.
But how many people here in the audience know of Cox & Kings outside of India, its various assets? Raise of hands. Not many.
Not many.
Is that a good thing?
Well, that means I have an option to expand. Yes, very good thing.
Yeah. Talking about M&A, EQT just took over Coney's. Yeah. Did you consider them?
Yes, we did put a bid. But the final takeover, talking about EQT there, no, not for that company. We're talking about the Indian.
I meant
okay.
in general. Did you consider any of its assets?
Yes, we did. But unfortunately, the interesting part of the business was not in the IM document. So that was a deal done, I think, beyond what was in the IM.
Okay. So your group is broadly divided into 4 parts: leisure, India, international, education, and Meininger. Which line of business is going to be the most rewarding in the near term, do you think?
In the near future, it's definitely Meininger and PGL. The Indian group market and the Indian FIT market has got great potential to grow. We are nowhere near the figures that you see in China. Outbound is only about 18 million, of which about half is visiting friends and families, marine travelers, corporate travelers, etc. So the potential to grow is huge because we have a massive consumer market where new entrants keep going up the ladder. So these are the 3 areas that we see immediate growth.
But where do you think the Indian traveler lags compared to the Chinese outbound?
I think in a lot of cases it's the money. I still think there's a big gap in the income levels. And the domestic market obviously has the greatest potential to grow because people will make it to a temple no matter what. Good, bad, and ugly, they'll be there. So these sort of things have a great potential to grow in the future too.
How are you working around this aspiration of Indian wanting to travel, obviously within India, but more so outside of India? Group-wise, how have you tried to tap into various markets beyond stores particularly?
Well, we have a very strong franchisee system. We're obviously developing our technology as we speak. I think today no company can be sitting alone thinking technology is not going to touch them. I can't live without my phone. I can't live without my iPad. I get really irritated, by the way, going in a traditional fashion. So I don't think any company is traditional anymore. Everyone's moving that way. It's going to be like, where's the fax today? Where's the telex machine today? So it's just a new way of working, a new way of distributing.
So we recently concluded a study which showed that about 2 in 3 travelers bought packages, but the other third is going their own way, booking their own stuff. How do you adapt to that changing environment?
Well, one of our biggest selling, if you call it packages, is really our FITs. It always has been. People don't tom-tom about it, but we sell individual designed, customized packages, which can go up to 23 days, 50 days, 2 days. So in that sense of the word, we've been around doing that anyway. Internally, we've already had all the systems. So it's now really going out and modernizing your system. So we are right in the midst of all that.
You've got operations in Europe and Australia as well. When you look both of these, actually 3, India including, how different is it operationally there in the sense, are customers, I'm trying to get at, where are customers more aspirational about doing things versus just having easy access and going and booking their travel?
I think today your experiences are really important. It's your holiday. It's those 5 days or 2 weeks. You just don't want it messed up. Life's hard anyway. So I think you'll go everywhere and look for it. So you'll probably go online. In India, they kind of come back to us because there are big problems with the visas. It's definitely eased up over the years, but it's still, for example, if you try to get a booking for a USA appointment, you probably have to wait for about 4 to 5 weeks. That really doesn't help last-minute travel at all. If one person gets rejected, normally an entire group falls out. It's still difficult for people to comprehend that they have to pay cancellation fees because they think it's really not their fault that they got knocked off. So these are the sort of things that do affect us. Things like credit cards, very often a family of 4, the person who's involved won't even have the limits to pay for that online. So we have this, India's wonderful in that respect. We create a complete hybrid solution for everything and anything, no matter what the industry is. If something doesn't work, we all roll up our sleeves and throw in 1,000 people at the problem. And that's how it is, but it gets the work done and you deliver. And that's the main thing. In the end, the customer wants delivery. So if he's going to get it online, if he's going to get it with 30 people sitting behind there, or whatever, the job is done. The real efficiency comes for us. How do I minimize my costs? How do I get economies of scale? How do I get my messages to the customer so that he can discover easily, so that he can, research easily, he can share easily, and then finally, if he wants to buy, he wants to buy easily. That's the whole point. And the last thing that I really feel is what our earlier speaker said, is personalization really matters. I like to know that you know me, not in an obtrusive way, but certainly in a way that you understand I've been to these places. Most travelers are probably better traveled than some of our staff, for example, or even staff in other companies, other travel companies. So how do you still give a seamless service? There's so many countries to see, so much to do. Can I pop something up in front of the sales staff that makes it so easy for him to converse with the person as if he's traveled there? Very often I tell people it's just a question of selling well, but can I give you the tools to really sell well? The personalization part I think is so important because I struggle sometimes to find holidays that I would like. I want to know what to do. I don't want to go to the typical place and see the typical thing. I like to think that I've discovered something special, something different. So personalization is going to be the key in the future, I feel.
So taking a cue of that, and we were talking about AI earlier as well.
Yeah.
How do you marry personalization, AI, and your frontline staff? Do you power the frontline staff with AI, or would you rather power your customer directly?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, there
And-
would
and
be a
tour
time
operating
maybe it'll be almost
challenging-
like a robo sitting
Yeah.
behind there. Who knows where it's going to go. And virtual reality will probably make photographs extinct. And we film the way we see it is going to change because it's going to be an everyday reality for someone younger to see everything in 3D. You'll probably even adapt your eyes in the long term in the 3D vision. Who knows where it's going? But it's a very exciting time. It's a time that means there's change and opportunity. I don't understand when people say, oh, it's terrifying. I think you have to embrace it. You have to, take all the advantage of the tools that are given to you. You need to open your mind. You need to be sharing your stuff with other companies. Sometimes you're a buyer, sometimes you're a seller, sometimes you're an enabler. It doesn't matter what, because in the end, it's going to go that way whether you like it or not. The market waits for no one. So what can we do to adapt to that market?
So speaking about change, and let's go this one at a time.
Yeah.
You disinvested Holiday Breaks camping division. Why was that?
Well, that was really quite out of our space, in the sense we didn't really have expertise on it. And, we obviously got a great, great, great price. So, that's how it worked.
And the second one, within a year, you acquired Late Rooms and then spun it off along with Super Break to Malvern.
Yeah, but we still own 49%.
Yeah. So what's the rationale behind
The rationale
this restructuring?
is we bought it really, really cheap, and we needed to go out into the market, obviously, to expand, and they gave us the ability to do so.
What's the roadmap for Late Rooms now?
Late Rooms and Super Break are being amalgamated together. And obviously, they will be sharing the kind of sales they do. I mean, the packages and everything that they do. They tend to just now be UK-centric. And they do a little bit of Europe, but that obviously will change.
Okay. Continuing on online, what do you think about these new generation of startups focusing on tours and holiday packaging, be it Travel Triangle, Trip Hobo? In China, we've got Tunyu, which is an aggregator of all tour operators. How do you look at them? Do you think there's potential for the same in India?
I think every traditional player has to go that way. They have no choice. So I think it's a great thing. In fact, I personally have invested in some startups. And I'm going down that route because I love it.
Could you talk more about that?
Do I talk more about them? I better zip my lips.
So speaking of marketplaces, EasyGo One is also part of the group. What are the ambitions with EasyGo One? It's been a marketplace, meta marketplace, or I think even before Cunard switched on their bookings on the meta side of things.
Well, actually, they were the first meta search with the booking engine, and we were laughed out of the room.
In 2007
or 8.
Yeah.
And we got laughed out of the room, by the way, with Kayak, because they said they've never heard of something so silly. But I think Kayak did it a couple of years later. EasyGo I went the B2B way, mainly due to me, because I wasn't investing money at that point for the B2C. And I'm very happy to say that they are profitable, probably, I think, the only online company in travel in India that's profitable. They've gone clearly down 3 routes. One is on, obviously, online distribution and content. We believe in a lot of content, and we have very, very deep dive content material. They also have a BPO, which does extremely well. The third one is we are also working on some very interesting technology, and so they're going to be a technology enabler, also content and technology enabler.
Will it remain a standalone asset? I mean, I'm just looking at Late Rooms being an online asset, Super Break to some degree. Do you see potential?
There is potential.
Yeah.
I can't really say.
All right, fair enough. Speaking about online and some of the startups, what do you think about the prevailing valuations in that space right now?
You know, I'm sure everyone who got a crazy valuation got it at the right time, and I'm sure they must have loved it. You go through stages. Just now, the economic climate is not exactly favorable for this. It's a cycle. It'll go up and down. It's really going to be who's there and for what purpose. Are you there just to hawk it off? Are you there for the long haul? What's your purpose, and where are you really? What's your end game?
And you invest in a lot of companies in personal capacities. How many do you think are there just for the short haul?
For this?
Rather than the long marathon?
When I've invested in startups, there are 2 different motives. One is obviously to benefit us and C&K. I'm seeing how it works out. If it works out, then obviously we might take them in. which is really a strategic thing, not really an investment. But a lot of them, we are merely a bystander. We are there for the ride, enjoying it, understanding it, seeing how the world moves, seeing how they move, and really it's a learning period for us.
Uh, you also have interest in the lodging and vacation rental space, Meninger hostels and weekend jivik
Yeah,
in the bungalow rentals.
yeah.
Uh, how are those assets performing, and are they largely going to be Europe-centric?
Just now they're largely Europe-centric because we have a financier who has allocated about 400 million euros, and that goes into co-identifying properties and
That's
obviously,
for Meninger.
yeah,
Yep.
that's for Meininger, and they clearly are in the European space. They are, of course, looking at other spaces, but at this point, that's almost the low-hanging fruits because they're there. Bookit has been one of the larger players in the online space, and that market is certainly quite challenged because
Uh,
there's a buying capacity problem over there.
uh, Continuing on Meininger, it's an asset-light approach, franchise
Yeah,
model,
it's
hostel,
yeah.
but slightly not so low end, but slightly mid to.
Well, it's pretty good. I would say it's almost entry level 4-star.
Yeah.
Very, very clean, very, very budget conscious. It's very mass produced in the sense, every bed will be so, and it's very Germanic in its approach.
That sounds like what Oyo is trying to do in India.
I
Uh,
think Oyo is going into a different bracket.
yeah.
These are normally 200 room hotels,
Okay.
so you have quite a large inventory, not just 10 and 20 and 30. But India, India's a challenge because everybody here wants to discount. And, you're discounting with someone else's money, not yours, obviously hoping to kill all competition and be the sole player. But what I found in India, and I'm not sure about China, but I've noticed every time you think you've got there, now you can raise your price, suddenly there comes another competitor who teaches you a lesson. And this keeps going on and on and on. So I've seen this over the last, I've been in the business since 1986. You can never stop looking over your back. Never ever think that little guy on the, that dot on the map is not going to be big. I think as long as you're paranoid enough, you know what to look out for.
How do you handle that paranoia about those guys discounting and to some degree taking
I've
the
been
FIT
accused
crowd?
of doing that myself, so
You've
that's
got
how I
also
handle
teams
it.
to worry about that.
Well, you've got to be clever enough to make sure that you're not doing stupid things.
Yeah. Going forward, obviously, more consumers getting comfortable with online. How does that? How do you evolve yourselves from here on?
Well, I hope that we'll be looking at a very different Cox and Kings in a few years. And, I don't see a difference between, say, an online or an offline player. It's the way you come to us. I think if you need me to come to your house and sell a package, I can do that. If you want to buy it on my system or my mobile hands off, I'd love that. It's really the reach to the customer and how does the customer reach you. Are you providing that answer that the customer wants? That's the only thing. A happy guy will buy a second holiday for me or a third holiday. If he's unhappy, he's never going to come back.
But is it all about the happiness quotient, or
I
also
think it's only about the
also the
happiness
price
quotient.
factor wherein
But then that makes me
most
happy too,
intermediaries are?
right? A price quotient makes me happy. A nice experience makes me happy. You give me, the answer to a question, even if you give me bad news, but you say, listen, this is going to be a horrible thing and I really don't recommend it. They trust you because you're starting to talk from that point of trust. They know they can depend on you. If you say you're going to call up at 2 o'clock and you call up at 2 o'clock, even if it's bad news, they know you take that effort to do that. It makes a huge difference to me.
And finally, how do you transfer your brand equity to this next gen traveler who may not be as familiar with Cox and Kings as a legacy brand?
So what we did was we started doing these dipsticking into all the social media, and we didn't go social, but we decided to take a couple of campaigns just to sort of suss out how people react, and we got an amazing response. We took adventure holidays, which weren't really adventure. They were also experiences like, dancing with the Zulus and going to, Papua New Guinea and eating and living with one of the pygmy tribes. And yes, you could do diving off a cliff if you wanted to. And we just tested this off, and we found we got, thousands and millions of hits, and loads of people came on the site. So I got my answer, but I didn't yet know how to activate it because we are not in that space. So, these are the sort of dipsticks we've been doing over the last 2 years, and now we kind of know where we are heading.
Ladies and gentlemen, Urrshila Kerkar.
Thank you.
Thank you.